Mr. 510 says, damn, look at you guys in those Annex polos. I keep this polo upstairs. This is the only time I wear the polo to do media stuff. But yeah, we'll get started on the live right now. It's May 21st. This is the Annex Suspension Podcast. Today we're going to talk about multi-way adjustable suspension, so 2 and 3 way adjustables. And all right, so to premise why we're going to talk about 2 and 3 way adjustables today, we had a customer come in driving his other car, and one thing I noticed was that on the way in and out of our driveway, he three-wheeled in and out of getting into our driveway. And later on, I noticed that he was putting remote reservoirs in his engine bay, and his 3-way adjustables was from a well-known top-tier suspension company. And my thought was like, this really expensive set of suspension and their 3-way adjustables, but they're not going to really work if you're picking wheels up off the ground. And that also made me think, like, one of the most common questions we get is, do you guys offer 2 and 3-way adjustables? So we're going to answer all those questions today, and make sure you guys, we're going to answer questions live, so make sure you guys, we'd love for you guys to participate in this discussion also. All right, so the short answer, yes, we do make 2 and 3-way adjustable suspension, and Grant, do you want to talk about the 3-way adjustables we made last year?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, guys? We do get that question a lot, like Ezekiel was saying. People are wondering, like, they see that we have a single adjustable Club Spec Pro and the Fast Road Pro, and they wonder, like, if we're planning on building a 2-way or 3-way adjustable. And I often, we'll often reply that, like, yeah, we have built those before. Our focus currently is on the single adjustables because we feel that the majority of the customer base is going to be looking for a single adjustable. But some people may not realize that, why they would want a 1 or 2 or 3-way adjustable. So that's part of the reason why we're having this discussion today. And yeah, in the background, should we just bring that over now?
Yeah, hold on. You want to put on your gloves? I'll bring it up for you.
Okay. So yeah, in the background we've got a demo set of, a prototype set of our single adjustables that we added some high-end canisters on there. I mean, I can just say we're using a Penske canister on there to give us a total of three types of adjustment. So when we talk about the types of adjustment, there's usually people break it down into high speed, low speed, and rebound and compression adjustment. And so the way that shock companies allow you to get those adjustments can differ, but typically you're going to have your 1 or 2 ways of adjustment on the rebound side, and more frequently you're going to have 1 or 2 ways of adjustment on the compression side. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So what you're looking at here is a rear of an FRS that is using our single adjustable shock body, and then we've got our canister, which is high speed and low speed adjustable, which Ezekiel's holding in his right hand. So the reason we built this is because when we went to the track, we wanted to be able to kind of fine tune the compression curve of our single adjustables, and to more rapidly do that, we put on a low speed and high speed adjustable canister so that we could dial in that curve as quickly as we could, and also let us do changes at the track in real time to see what adjustments are doing what on the vehicle and how it's handling.
Ruthless by Law, thank you for joining us. Mario just got a set of our Fast Road Pro for his 06 WRX, so thanks for joining us on the live, Mario. And also, then Phil says from the SF Bay Area, thanks for joining us again, Phil.
What's up, Phil?
All right. So, Grant, What else can we talk about on these three-way adjustables that we use for testing? So we use these in a competitive series, right?
Yeah, we so these were the basic shock was built up for our competition efforts in 8.6 Drive Challenge, which is the NorCal, all FRS and BRZ road race group that we talked about. They did time trials specifically, and we wanted to develop Club Spec Pro into something that people could just bolt on and start doing, be competitive in their class if points allow for it. So to help us get there quickly, we installed these double adjustable canisters and then went testing at Buttonwillow. And our specific goals, we wanted to get the cars to be unflappable over berms, because we noticed that there's some NorCal tracks with really large berms that can really make or break a good suspension. So we learned quite a bit. I think earlier on in the year, there were some bumps, some really large bumps, like Thunderhill West, for example. There's turn 3. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one, but it's a massive bump. A lot of cars will go off course there because you'll hit it at something like 85 miles an hour, and the cars just get launched. And interestingly enough, the compression curve has a lot to do with how the car will handle those big bumps and those big upsets. So we tried a few different things, but we were finding that we wanted to really get to the bottom of it quickly. So we put on some data logging onto the cars. Matt Belter allowed us to put some shock pots and a data logger on his car, and we were able to see what the wheel was doing real time as it's going over the bump. And with that, on our first times out, we could see that we were using all the suspension travel, and it was just the bump was just too much for our suspension setting at the time. So then we decided, okay, let's go. We'll go do a test and tune day at another track, and that's well known for big bumps, such as Buttonwillow. We went there and we built up this canister set, installed in the car, went out there with our data logging, and we're able to quickly dial in and get the car to handle those bumps and transitions, better and better throughout the day.
Owinjo actually just joined us on the live. Thank you for joining us, Owinjo. And we got a question for you we have a question from you that you asked us ahead of time. So thanks for joining us for the live, and thanks for asking a question ahead of time. All right. So yeah, this guy, if this answers your question, we can build 2 and 3 ways in-house. We actually built this from a box of parts. And let's see if there's anything else you want to talk about. Or if you're done talking about this, we can talk about that too.
Oh, we talk a little bit more about the canister. I mean, do you guys have any questions about the canisters themselves or how this all works? To take a step back, we don't tend to go super into detail on how 2 and 3 way shocks work, because we think it's a little bit out of the scope. But we want to kind of hit some of the more high level questions, because I think it can be kind of bewildering, like why you might want like a 2 or 3 way adjustable shocker. Do you even need that, right? So we can talk about a lot of things, but we want to see what what in general you guys want to know about, because there's so many things we could talk about this, and we don't want to get out of the scope on it.
Owinjo says Axis for the win. What is Axis?
Oh, it's a company that's related to Penske.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyways, I mean, one thing that we found interesting back in the day when we started looking into this is that how these two circuits are completely separate. You've got your rebound adjustment on the main shock, and then on the canister you only have the compression only. And I thought it was interesting once we kind of dove into it and saw how this whole setup is working. But essentially you've got the main piston pushing the fluid down through the bottom of the shock, and then that's going out to the canister. And all these adjustments are doing here on the high speed and low speed compression at the top of the canister is just restricting the flow of that fluid back into the canister and pushing on that air chamber here. So it's a clever way to build up compression force just by restricting the flow there rather than relying on the main stack. So again, don't want to go into too much detail, but I thought that was a pretty interesting concept on how this works.
Okay, Rob has a question. So Rob, Destiny the S2K asks, what areas does a 3-way give extra adjustment over a 2-way, like related to a car driving feel?
Yeah. So if you guys are familiar with high speed and low speed adjustment, maybe that's something I can talk a little bit about. But when we're talking about high and low speed adjustments on a shock, we're talking about the shock speed, not necessarily the wheel speed. Sometimes they can be related. If your car is going rapidly and it hits the same size bump, the wheel is going to stroke up and down quicker if the car is traveling faster for the same amplitude of bump that it's hitting. So and Rob, you probably are familiar with this because you joined our seminar last year when we talked about this. But if you remember those quadrants where we talked about high speed being in this quadrant versus low speed being another quadrant, those are the areas of the graph that we're talking about. So when we're dealing with high speed or low speed adjustments, it's more about what types of transitions or bumps that the car is hitting that you want to focus on. For example, if we want to deal with how the car is handling on a side-to-side or rapidly going through transitions, that's going to be more of a low-speed range where the body roll is not making the shock move that fast, even though the car could be going, like 100 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour. And you want to, and we use a low-speed adjustment to adjust how quickly the car is transitioning from side to side. And this also can depend on the amount of grip that you have at the track. For example, if it's a rainy day and the track is wet and that you don't have a lot of grip, then you'll want to you might find that having less low speed or compression in general will allow the car to get more grip. But if you have stickier tires or have a more grippy surface, you can run more compression at the low speed to get the car to transition quicker and get more performance out of it. And so that's for the low speed adjustment. High speed would be if you're hitting more like ripples or some parts of hitting a berm where you've got the wheel moving very rapidly up and down. And you can use the high speed adjustment to kind of change how much feel you're getting through the chassis, or also controlling really high speed oscillations such as brake shudder or other frequencies that you want to dampen. And yeah, so essentially you can use the high speed adjustment to kind of dial in the feel or tune out some of those vibrations. And as you can imagine, you're really getting to the very pointy end of the performance spectrum when we start dealing with high speed compression adjustments. This is something that you probably need to be spending a full day at the track doing testing to kind of realize these results, or have many years of experience. A lot of people that are going out and just having fun on the weekends are probably still going to be getting used to how the car is feeling at the track. And it may be kind of a waste of time or focus at the track if you're trying to dial in all these adjustments. So it's definitely something you can look at, but I wouldn't get in it too soon. I would definitely wait until you've got more, plenty of experience at the track and are comfortable with the car.
We don't need to keep holding on to this here.
Okay.
All right. So Chase in Motion just joined us. Thank you, Chase. We're working on your set right now. We're doing our best. And Rob asks, so would three-way give me more high speed? How would you answer that?
They could, and they also could not. It depends on how the basic shock is set up. So like I was explaining earlier, you've got the main stack that's making the majority of your compression curve, and then that canister is actually bleeding off pressure and reducing the force. It's actually allowing the fluid to bypass the main stack. So if you could build a lot of high-speed compression with just a normal linear or even slightly digressive compression stack, but then you can use that canister to actually bring it down. So if your goal is to have a lot of high-speed compression, you'd probably build the shock up to have plenty of high-speed force, and then you can use the canister to bring it up and down. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
So Rob says, my live keeps going in and out. Sorry, fellas. Don't be sorry, Rob. This is available on audio-only podcast, and also we'll have this video on YouTube. And then for you guys just joining us, I see a bunch of people just joined us. We are doing a live right now on 2- and 3-way adjustable suspension. So one thing I noticed when we went to SEMA last year, we got a bunch of brochures out, and we got a bunch of brochures, and I noticed there's so many suspension companies popping up right now, and so many offer like such a wide variety of product lines. So these unknown suspension companies offering 2 and 3-way adjustables, and you know, does this really mean anything to me? Is this like just like a marketing stunt to have like a 3-way in your product catalog? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the company. I think a lot of the industry is like sourcing components from contract manufacturers. We've been very transparent that like we also use components from contract manufacturers, but we focus on building our own internals. But through that, you don't know exactly. Looks like we're getting a phone call in. Through that, you don't know exactly if how in depth the companies have gone to build up that 2-way or 3-way adjustment. Meaning, like, yes, you can technically make an orifice that'll change the amount of force it's building, but how granular can you make the adjustments, and is the whole system designed as a cohesive unit are the important parts. Yeah.
Whale Tail Tom just joined us. I'm curious if there's a meaning behind that name. Please let us know, Tom. So another thing about multi-adjustable, 2 and 3-way adjustable suspension is that I don't know if there's really how much benefit you're gonna get if they're either physically installed incorrectly, or people don't know how to adjust it. Which I think majority of the public, including myself, I don't really know the best way to adjust my 2 and 3-ways, because I had a car with 2-way adjustable suspension in the rear once, and it was kind of like check and guess. And I remember before last time you talking, it's not just like you can make one single adjustment, right? You have to do all three at once. Is that right?
Yeah, depending on the style of the damper, there's a lot of popular models out there where if you change the compression, it actually changes the rebound at the same time, or vice versa. So you can imagine how confusing this would be if you're trying to dial in suspension at the racetrack, right? And you've got the rebound how you want it, and you go out there and you make some compression adjustments, and like, sure, the car's handling in a different way, maybe going towards the direction that you want, but something else feels a little bit off, right? So maybe over time you realize like, okay, it seems like the rebound has changed once I made that adjustment. So then they go back and change the rebound, and now the compression has changed. And with a shock dyno, we're lucky because we could see these changes very rapidly. But if you can imagine trying to figure this out at the track yourself, that'd be it would be very time consuming, and you need a lot of resources to dial that in. So so having all those adjustments is definitely something that is useful, but it needs to be spec'd out for the right use case. Yeah.
All right. We have one viewer question. Explain 1, 2, and 3-way adjustables and why you would choose each per situation. Owinjo also says check valves are important. What's a check valve?
Yeah, the check valve is just a way to limit the flow in one direction.
Okay. So why don't we talk about some cases where I would want a single, double, or triple adjustable?
Well, I think for most people, so if you're in a spec race, you may not be able to have any adjustments, right? There's some spec racing series where they're like, okay, here is the shock absorber you're going to use, and that's been tuned for this car with this spring and this weight, and that might be your best setup because then you can focus on other aspects of becoming a better driver, for example, or keeping costs low, right? Typically, a single adjustable is pretty common and desirable because you can make spring rate changes and tune a bit for the chassis conditions. And after that, if you have a lot of experience driving that car on the track and really understand what it's capable of and understand what you're capable of as a driver, then you can start to use a compression adjustment to kind of fine tune how the car is working on and off throttle, how it's handling steering inputs, and also tuning the dampers to better suit the topography of the track. Like if you have a lot of berms or it's a very bumpy course, you might get better performance by adjusting the compression. But if you can imagine, like, this all comes down to like how much time you have to be doing the testing, especially if you have a shock design where the rebound is changing at the same time. And then for the 3-way and beyond, I think there's as much as a 5-way adjustable shock these days. And I feel like each step of adjustment is infinitely higher a level amount of resources that you need to properly dial that in, because there's so many other things that can change and there's so much time that's needed to dial it in. To give you guys an example, when we were testing with the Penske units there, we had the entire track day to ourselves to just test many different setups. And if we were just driving as enthusiasts at a high performance driving event, it'd be really hard to kind of figure out what is best for the shock in that time frame.
Cool. Josh just joined us, and so did TrackDad86. So TrackDad86 is one of our sponsored drivers in the 8.6 Drive Challenge, Matt Belter. Thank you guys for both joining us.
How's it going, Matt?
Yeah, those 3 ways we just brought up were actually
on Matt's car. Yeah.
And then, so you guys joining us right now, we're talking about 2- and 3-way adjustable suspension today. So since Matt just joined us and we're talking about FRS suspension, why don't we talk about the parts we have on the table that we also used in that chassis?
Yeah, that's a nice segue. We talked about the FRS chassis quite a bit, and the reason we spend so much time and effort in that chassis is a couple of guys on the R&D team personally have those vehicles. And it's also known as a relatively challenging car to get dialed in because it has a lot of limitations from the factory. One of the biggest issues that car has is the lack of rear stroke at the back of the car. You guys might be familiar that newer and newer cars will have less and less shock travel in the back because they're trying to make space for luggage, right? Like, people these days, they just want the car to be practical, right? They're going to buy the car based on what is going to have the most interior space and what how they can get the most use out of the car. May not be focusing so much on things like suspension travel, right? That's really something only nerdy people like ourselves really care about. But anyways, to address the shortcomings in that car, we realized that especially hitting those large berms, we needed to get the wheel to travel up and down more on that chassis to get to not have it get thrown off by those big impacts. So we developed a top hat here that goes on top of the shock and allows there to be about 1.5 inches more shock travel, and allows that wheel to move up and down quite a bit because the shock is inboard, so that 1.5 inches turns out to a much larger amount out at the wheel based on the what we call the motion ratio, and this type of product by itself is not unique. There's a lot of extended top hats on the market, especially for other cars. This is also a common issue on first generation Miatas. Have you heard of that one, Ezekiel?
No, I'm not a Miata person.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The NA Miatas are really well known to have short travel in the rear. So this is something that's been dealt with for a long time. And Mazda themselves came out with a solution to put a taller top hat on the back, which is found in the NB. So then you'll see people putting NB top hats on NA Miatas to get the same effects. So this concept is not necessarily new. But what we did want to focus on was getting rid of the noise while maintaining the use of a spherical for race applications, and that has been kind of a challenge, I think, for companies to figure out how to get the location with the spherical without bringing noise into the cabin. We've always cared about NVH getting to the cabin, so we spent a lot of time finding the right bearing with ultra tight tolerances. This happens to be an FK bearing made in the USA, but finding a bearing with really tight tolerances that we could secure without any slop at all, and it can also adjust over time. I know we were using another brand's top hat originally when we were testing on Matt and some of the other guys' FRSs and BRZs. And they were getting pretty upset by the amount of noise that was getting to the cabin. So we had to come out with this solution as quickly as we could. But now we have this on Matt's car as well.
Another thing I want to add, our CSP, which is our more race-oriented product. One thing we learned from the 8.6 Drive Challenge is a lot of these guys actually drive their car to and from the track. Even if it's like a 5-hour drive, they'll still do it. And so we wanted the CSP product to still be streetable, right? So even if you wanted to commute and go to your job on the CSP product, you can still do it, and it'll still have reduced NVH. In addition to how we design the extended top hats, we also include the NVH isolators, just like the Fast Road Pro product has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's that's a really good point. To have a car be fast at track doesn't necessarily have to be uncomfortable. We did find that there are some trade-offs on a more race-oriented product. You will probably want to have more compression damping, which does make the car more reactive to the road surfaces. But that is something that you can kind of fine tune with a triple adjustable, where you can kind of blow off that high speed force that's getting into the cabin. So that is one use case. Like if you're really particular and have the funds, you could use a triple adjustable to kind of get both the ride quality, when you're driving around, as well as the performance you want at the track. But yeah, altogether, we wanted to have something that you could reasonably get to the racetrack and not be in pain by the time you get there.
Yeah, I think you said uncomfortable. I think uncomfortable is an understatement. A lot of people who I know are in the market for a race-oriented product, it's punishing to drive that car on the street. It's punishing, and then it's noisy in the cabin, which I don't think you should have to deal with.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you don't know until you experience it yourself, right? And it's also really hard to get like a subjective evaluation based on what someone is typing on a forum, or even what someone is saying on a video, because their idea of comfort can be very different. Our idea of comfort can be very different to yours, right? I know we definitely built some products that I like, some of us on the team thought was like a little bit uncomfortable, but then we had some customers that were totally okay with that, and they were actually like, yeah, you can make this like stiffer if that helps performance. So it really does depend.
I was gonna say, on the last live we did, Joe was like, yes, there is no too stiff for me.
That's right. Yeah.
So why don't we go ahead and start answering some viewer questions that asked us ahead of time. So, fun question. Tuned Daily Drivers asks, or states, loving my M4. What is your daily?
Well, my daily is a 2013 ZN6 FRS. And that car actually has a prototype set of Club Spec Pros. So I'm driving every day on our race oriented product.
So I technically have two daily drivers. I originally bought my 2015 Tacoma X Runner as a daily driver, but my commute got a lot longer, and fuel prices are ridiculous if you've never been to California. So my current daily is a 1982 Toyota Corolla station wagon.
Yeah, I think we're moving more and more towards practicality. I think my next daily driver is going to be a cargo van.
So Tyler from the R&D team, TP Coglet. Sorry, Tyler, I never know how to pronounce your last name. When should you be adjusting compression? First of all, if you have a single way adjustable, doesn't it majority adjust the rebound?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So why don't we, I split this up into like a few different questions. Why don't we just say, how do I adjust my double adjustables? And then when should you be adjusting compression? When should you be adjusting rebound?
That's a good question. I like that. So like Ezekiel was saying, most of the single adjustable shocks are going to be primarily rebound. Some shocks do have some adjustments, with a little bit of adjustment on the compression side as well as you're adjusting it. And some are strictly rebound only. So in that case, you're not really going to be adjusting the compression. You're mainly going to be focusing on the rebound. And you would do that if you have a big spring rate change, or you'll notice, like, if you have more passengers in the car, you might need to increase the rebound force. But at the track, you might want more rebound or less rebound depending on the a little bit of the surface, how much grip you have that day. But then as you get more, into the higher end shocks, you start to have separate adjustments like we've been talking about. And you could use compression adjustment to impact how quick the car is transitioning from side to side, and also how it's handling certain bumps of the track, like berms and ripples and things like that. And so while we were testing, one of the feedbacks we got from the drivers is as we would change either the low speed or high speed compression, the car would be a little bit quicker on turn in, or it'd be more happy to dance on throttle. If we're adjusting the rear compression, for example. So it's pretty cool, because if you have a car that's handling really well on most of the track, but there might be one like maybe like off camber, decreasing or increasing radius turn that starts to push a little bit. You just want to be able to just kind of get it to tighten up in those situations. You can use things like the high speed and low speed compression to fine tune those turns and how the car reacts to the throttle. If you kind of just need to goose it just a little bit on a particular turn, but then still have it but not affect the rest of the track too much. So it's it's pretty fun to be able to make little nuanced changes like that to get the car to perform the best. But you can go too far too, like if you add in too much compression, you'll find that the car can actually lose grip. It'll become skatey. The tire won't stick to the pavement. When you increase that compression force, it's basically pushing more of that bump into the chassis, and you can actually get the car to kind of lift off a bit over that rough terrain. So there's definitely a lot of time involved, needing to look at tire temps and sector times to kind of see what's the best setup, as well as the subjective feel. That's important too, because if the car is fast but the driver is not comfortable with that setup, then overall that whole package is going to be slower, right? So you kind of need to dial in the shocks to the driver's preferences as well.
For you guys just joining us, we are doing a live on 2- and 3-way adjustable suspension, and we are going to cut this short today. So we have 10 minutes left. If you guys have a question, make sure to ask it before the end of this live stream. So Owinjo asks, and thank you for asking us a question ahead of time. Every time we do live stream, we'll have in our story something you can ask us a question ahead of time to make sure that your question gets answered on the live stream. He says, explain pressure balancing and how you guys do it. Why don't you answer the first half of that question? Explain pressure balancing.
Oh yeah. That is something you run into if you're a shock builder primarily. For the majority of people buying suspension, it's probably not a term you've even heard about or need to be worried, too concerned about. But we can tell Winjo, builds plenty of shock, so he's familiar with this. But you want to make sure that you have the right amount of compression force on the stack versus the base valve on the canister to reduce the overall hysteresis when you're adding a canister to the shock. And again, I think a lot of that's kind of past the scope of what we're trying to talk about. But in a nutshell, to get the most performance out of a canister shock, you have to balance the amount of force on the main shock versus the canister. And that is an example of what separates a shock company that is putting stuff together versus a company that has experience and the resources to spend the time to get that dialed in correctly.
So Mr. Owinjo, if you want to know how we do it, that's too bad because it's a secret. All right, we'll cut it short.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So thank you guys again for joining us for the live. If you guys have a better day and time, I think because a lot of people are going back to their day jobs now. But yeah, if you guys have a better day and time that you would like us to do the live, please let us know. We were thinking about doing it in the evening time. So if there's an evening time, Pacific Standard Time, that's better for you guys. Owinjo gave us a face with the tongue sticking out. Yeah. Too bad, man. Some things are secrets. So, but if you ever run into us at the track, we'd love to at least meet you and
awesome.
And say what's up. Meet the guy behind the screen name and the difficult questions. But yeah, if you guys have a better day and time that you want us to do live, now that we're thankfully we're able to go back to work, please let us know. And then again, if you have questions that you want to be answered before the live, DM us, leave it. We'll have an option for questions in our Instagram stories sometimes. And again, we We were planning Thursday at 1 p.m., but that doesn't seem like it's going to be working since people are going back to work. So, yeah, again, let us know what's a good time for you guys. And for you guys that joined us, thank you for tuning in.
Do have one follow up too, right?
Okay.
Some people have asked like if we can build these for people, right?
Yeah, so that's the most common question I see all the time is like, when will you guys build 2-ways, or are you guys able to build 3-ways?
Yeah. Short answer is we do have a 2-way on the roadmap. So if you are a customer that's bought either Fast Road Pro or Club Spec from us in the past, or are planning to, and are wondering if you might want to have a 2-way or even a 3-way adjustable setup in your future as you progress as a driver, that is something on the roadmap, and we can do an upgrade in the future for that. But as of right now, if someone wanted us to build a set with those fancy Penske reservoirs to get all of the adjustability with quality parts, we can do that now. Just gotta let us know. We can talk about how we can make that a reality for you.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you guys again. Make sure to shoot us a DM or an email. When is the best time and day we should be doing these Instagram live? But yeah, thank you guys again for the support.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. Catch us next time.